The letter, trembling in Theresa Ann's hands, promised nothing more than shelter and a partnership of convenience. But after 3 months of sleeping in a Boston alley with nothing but her dead mother's shawl for warmth, even that seemed like Providence itself had reached down to save her life. The year was 1878, and Theresa had watched her mother succumb to consumption just as winter's grip began to tighten around the city. At 19 years old, with no family and no prospects, she had answered an advertisement seeking a mail-order bride for a cattleman in Kelton, Utah Territory. The man's letter had been brief and honest, almost brutally so. He needed help on his ranch, someone to cook and clean, and in return he would provide food, shelter, and his name. There was no mention of affection or romance. Aaron York had written that he expected hard work and nothing more, that the land was unforgiving and the life harder still. Theresa read those words and felt relief rather than disappointment. She had no illusions about love anymore. Love had not saved her mother. Love had not kept a roof over their heads when her father died in a factory accident 5 years earlier. Love was a luxury for women who could afford it, and she had learned that survival mattered more than sentiment. The journey west had taken every last coin she possessed, and when the stagecoach finally rattled into Kelton 3 weeks later, she stepped down onto dusty ground with an empty stomach, and shoes so worn she could feel every rock beneath her feet. The town itself was little more than a collection of weathered buildings clustered along the railroad tracks, surrounded by vast stretches of sagebrush and distant mountains that seemed to touch the endless sky. She stood beside her single battered trunk and looked around at the handful of men loitering near the general store. None of them approached her. A woman with a baby on her hip glanced at Theresa with obvious curiosity before hurrying inside. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and Theresa felt sweat beginning to gather beneath her collar despite the autumn date. "Miss Ames." The voice came from behind her, deep and cautious. Theresa turned and found herself looking up at a man who stood well over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that strained against his work shirt and hands that looked like they could break a fence post in half. But it was his face that caught her attention. He was younger than she had expected, perhaps 25 or 26, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of the summer sky she remembered from her childhood. There was a gentleness in those eyes that seemed at odds with the hard set of his jaw and the calluses she could see on his palms. "Mr. York?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Aaron," he said, removing his hat in a gesture that seemed automatic. "I hope the journey was not too difficult." Theresa almost laughed at the understatement but caught herself. "It was long, but I am here now." He nodded, looking uncomfortable, then reached for her trunk. She noticed the way he lifted it easily, as if it weighed nothing at all. "The wagon is just over there. The ranch is about an hour's ride." They walked to where a sturdy wagon waited, hitched to 2 patient horses. Aaron helped her up onto the seat with surprising care, his hand steady under her elbow. Then he climbed up beside her and took the reins. The silence stretched between them as they left the town behind. Theresa studied the landscape, so different from anything she had ever known. The vastness of it made her feel small and lost, but also strangely free. There were no narrow alleys here, no crowds pressing in from all sides. Just space that seemed to go on forever. "The ranch is small," Aaron said finally, breaking the quiet. "Just me and my brother Cal working it. He lives in the bunkhouse. You'll have your own room in the main house. I sleep in the loft." He paused, then added, "I meant what I wrote in the letter. I do not expect anything except help with the work. You will have your privacy." Theresa looked at his profile, at the tension in his shoulders. "I understand. I appreciate your honesty, Mr. York." "Aaron," he corrected gently. "We are to be married after all, Might as well use first names. Then you should call me Theresa. He nodded, and she thought she saw the corner of his mouth lift slightly. Theresa, he repeated, as if testing how the name felt. It is a good name. They rode on, and Aaron pointed out landmarks as they went, a creek where the cattle watered, a stand of cottonwoods that marked the northern boundary of his property, the remains of an old homestead that had been abandoned before he bought the land. "Why did you send for a bride?" Theresa asked, surprising herself with her boldness. "You seem capable enough on your own." Aaron was quiet for a long moment. "My mother passed 2 years ago," he said finally. "My father followed her 6 months later. Cal and I have been managing, but it is harder than I expected. The cooking, the cleaning, trying to keep the place from falling apart around us while we work the herd. I thought about hiring help, but it seemed like a wife would be more practical." He glanced at her. "That probably sounds cold." "It sounds honest," Theresa said. "I appreciate that more than pretty lies." His expression softened. "What about you? What brings a Boston girl all the way out here to marry a stranger?" Theresa looked down at her hands, folded in her lap. "Desperation," she said simply. "My mother died, and I had nowhere else to go. Your advertisement promised survival. That was more than I had in Boston." She expected judgment or pity, but Aaron only nodded. "Then I will do my best to make sure you have more than just survival here." Something in his tone made her look at him again, but his attention was on the road ahead. The ranch house came into view as they crested a low rise. It was a simple structure, wood frame with a covered porch and a stone chimney. Behind it stood a barn and several outbuildings. Fences marked off corrals where horses and cattle moved lazily in the afternoon heat. It was not grand, but it looked solid and well maintained. A man emerged from the barn as they approached. He was shorter than Aaron, stockier, with the same blue eyes but lighter hair. He raised a hand in greeting, his expression curious. "That is Cal," Aaron said. "He is 23 and thinks he knows everything. Do not let him fool you." Cal met them at the wagon, grinning up at Theresa. "So you are real." Aaron was starting to think you might have been a figment of someone's imagination. "I am real enough," Theresa said, accepting his help down from the wagon. "And pretty too," Cal said cheerfully. "Aaron, you did not mention that in your letters." "Cal," Aaron said, a warning in his voice. "What? I am just making an observation." Cal winked at Theresa. "Welcome to the York Ranch, miss. It is not much, but we work hard to keep it running." Aaron carried her trunk into the house, and Theresa followed, taking in everything with quick glances. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a large fireplace dominating one wall. The furniture was simple but sturdy. Everything was clean but had the unmistakable feel of a place kept by men who did their best but lacked a woman's touch. "Your room is through here," Aaron said, leading her to a door off the main room. The bedroom was small but had a real bed with a proper mattress, a dresser, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. "It was my mother's sewing room. I moved her things to the loft after she passed." "It is perfect," Theresa said, and meant it. After months of sleeping rough, the simple room looked like luxury. Aaron set her trunk at the foot of the bed. "I know you must be tired. There is water in the pitcher, and I will have Cal bring in some hot water if you would like to wash up. We usually eat around sunset." "Nothing fancy, just whatever Cal and I throw together." "I can cook," Theresa said quickly. "That is part of why I am here, is it not?" "Tonight you should rest," Aaron said. "Tomorrow is soon enough to start." After he left, closing the door quietly behind him, Theresa sat on the edge of the bed and let herself absorb the reality of her situation. She was in Utah territory, in a house with two strange men about to marry one of them. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt only a cautious relief. Aaron seemed kind if reserved. The house was solid. She would have food and shelter. It was more than she had dared to hope for. She unpacked her few belongings, hanging her 2 spare dresses in the empty wardrobe. Her mother's shawl she folded carefully and placed in the dresser drawer, along with the small wooden box that held her parents' wedding rings and a faded daguerreotype of them on their wedding day. True to Aaron's word, Cal brought hot water and left it outside her door with a cheerful knock. Theresa washed away the dust of travel and changed into her better dress, the dark blue one that her mother had made for her 3 years ago. It was worn but clean, and she pinned her blonde hair up carefully, wanting to make a good impression. When she emerged, she found both brothers in the kitchen. Aaron was slicing bread while Cal stirred something that smelled surprisingly good in a pot over the fire. "Stew," Cal announced. "It is about the only thing I can make that will not kill you." "Well, that and coffee strong enough to strip paint." "It smells wonderful," Theresa said honestly. Aaron looked up and his eyes widened slightly. "You did not have to dress up. We are not fancy people here." "I wanted to," Theresa said simply. They ate at the rough wooden table, and Theresa discovered that she was ravenous. The stew was simple but hearty, filled with beef and vegetables. Cal kept up a steady stream of conversation, telling stories about the ranch and the neighbors. Aaron was quieter, but Theresa noticed the way he made sure her bowl stayed full and her cup never went empty. "We should probably talk about the wedding," Aaron said finally, after Cal had cleared the dishes. "I spoke to the circuit preacher last month when he came through. He is due back next week. I thought we could make it official then if that suits you." "That is fine," Theresa said. "I do not need any fuss." "There is a dance at the church hall the night before he arrives," Cal said. "The whole valley comes out for it. It might be a good chance for you to meet folks before the wedding." Theresa felt a flutter of nerves at the thought of being presented to the community, but she nodded. "I would like that." The days that followed fell into a rhythm that Theresa found unexpectedly comforting. She woke before dawn and had coffee ready when the brothers came in from the early chores. She cooked breakfast, proper meals instead of the haphazard food the men had been making do with. After they left for the day's work, she cleaned the house thoroughly, room by room, finding satisfaction in bringing order to the space. She discovered that Aaron's mother had left behind a well-stocked pantry and root cellar. There were preserves and pickles, sacks of flour and cornmeal, even a small store of sugar and coffee. Theresa used them carefully, making bread and pies, roasting chickens from the henhouse, preparing meals that made both brothers praise her skills. Aaron remained courteous but distant, thanking her for the meals but rarely lingering to talk. He spent his days working the cattle, mending fences, preparing for the coming winter. Theresa watched him from the kitchen window sometimes, admiring the easy way he sat a horse and the patient manner he had with the animals. Cal was friendlier, often stopping to chat while she worked. He told her about growing up on the ranch, about the hard years after their parents died, about Aaron's determination to keep the place going when many advised them to sell and move on. "He is stubborn," Cal said one afternoon, leaning against the kitchen door frame while Theresa kneaded dough. "But he is good, best man I know, actually. He will treat you right, Theresa." "I am not expecting romance, Cal," Theresa said gently. "Your brother was honest about what this marriage is. I appreciate that." "Maybe," Cal said, his expression thoughtful. "But I have seen the way he looks at you when you are not watching. I think there might be more there than he is willing to admit, even to himself." Theresa's hand stilled on the dough. "What do you mean?" Cal grinned. "Just keep your eyes open, that is all I am saying." The night of the dance arrived, and Theresa dressed in her best dress, wishing desperately that she had something finer to wear. When she emerged from her room, both brothers were waiting. Cal wore a clean shirt and had actually combed his hair, but it was Aaron who took her breath away. He had shaved and put on what was clearly his Sunday best, a white shirt and dark vest that made him look both handsome and somehow vulnerable. "You look beautiful," he said quietly, and the sincerity in his voice made Theresa's cheeks warm. "Thank you. You both look very nice as well." The church hall was already crowded when they arrived, filled with families from the scattered ranches and farms in the valley. Theresa felt eyes on her immediately, curious and assessing. Aaron stayed close to her side, his hand light on her elbow as he introduced her to what seemed like dozens of people. There was Martha Henderson, a widow who ran the general store in town, and her daughter Emma, who was close to Theresa's age. The Calloway family, with their 6 children ranging from toddlers to teenagers. Old Mr. Peterson, who claimed to have been trapping in these mountains before there was even a town. The names and faces blurred together, but everyone was polite, welcoming even. "So you are Aaron's mail-order bride," Emma said, pulling Theresa aside while the men gathered near the refreshment table. "That must have taken courage, coming all this way to marry a stranger." "It took desperation more than courage," Theresa said honestly, "but Aaron has been very kind." "Aaron is a good man," Emma said. "Quiet but good. My mother tried to match me with him last year, but I think we both knew it would not work. We are too different." She leaned closer conspiratorially. "Between you and me, I think you suit him better. He needs someone with some steel in her spine, and you have the look of someone who has weathered storms." Before Theresa could respond, the music started. A fiddler and a man with a guitar struck up a lively tune, and couples began to move onto the floor. Aaron appeared at Theresa's side. "I am not much of a dancer," he said, looking uncomfortable, "but people will expect us to take a turn." Theresa had not danced since before her father died, but she placed her hand in Aaron's and let him lead her onto the floor. He was stiff at first, clearly self-conscious, but he knew the steps well enough. As they moved through the dance, Theresa became aware of how carefully he held her, as if she were something precious that might break. "You are better at this than you claimed," she said, looking up at him. "My mother insisted we learn," Aaron said. "She said no son of hers would embarrass himself at a dance." His expression softened with the memory. "She loved music, used to sing while she worked." "What was she like?" Theresa asked. "Strong, kind, she had to be to survive out here." "But she never let the hardness of the life make her hard, if that makes sense." He met Theresa's eyes. "I think she would have liked you." The sincerity in his voice made Theresa's throat tight. "I wish I could have met her." They danced 2 more dances before Aaron excused himself to talk with some of the ranchers. Cal immediately swooped in to claim Theresa for the next song, spinning her around with far more enthusiasm than skill. "See," he said, grinning. "Aaron is smitten, I told you." "He is being polite," Theresa protested, but she could not quite keep the smile from her face. The evening wore on, and Theresa found herself genuinely enjoying the company. The women were welcoming, eager to share advice about surviving winters in the territory and dealing with the isolation of ranch life. The men treated her with respect, and several made a point of telling her that Aaron was lucky to have found her. On the ride home, with Cal driving and Aaron beside Theresa in the back of the wagon, the silence was comfortable. The stars overhead were brighter than any Theresa had ever seen, stretching across the sky in a river of light. "I had a good time tonight," she said softly. "I am glad," Aaron replied. "The people here are good folk, they look out for each other." "It is very different from Boston." "Do you miss it?" Theresa considered the question. "I miss my mother, but Boston itself? No, there was nothing there for me but memories and hardship." Aaron nodded slowly. Sometimes a fresh start is what we need." He paused, then added, "I hope this can be that for you, Theresa. A real home, not just a place to survive." She looked at him in the starlight, at the honest concern in his face. "I think it already is," she said. The wedding took place the following week in the same church hall where they had danced. Theresa wore her blue dress again, with wildflowers that Emma had helped her gather that morning. Aaron wore his suit and looked nervous, his hands clasping and unclasping at his sides until the preacher began the ceremony. The service was simple and brief. Theresa spoke her vows clearly, promising to honor and cherish. Aaron's voice was steady as he made the same promises. When the preacher pronounced them married and told Aaron he could kiss his bride, Aaron hesitated for just a moment before leaning down to press a chaste kiss to Theresa's lips. It was quick and almost shy, but Theresa felt warmth spread through her chest. The small gathering of neighbors applauded, and then everyone moved to the tables that had been set up with food. It was a modest celebration, but genuine. People laughed and talked, and Theresa felt more welcome than she had expected. As the sun began to set and people started to leave, Martha Henderson pulled Theresa aside. "Marriage is not always easy, especially out here," she said. "But I can see that Aaron cares for you, even if he has not quite figured it out himself yet. Be patient with him. He carries a lot of responsibility on those shoulders." "I will," Theresa promised. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Cal had ridden ahead on his horse, giving them privacy in the wagon. Aaron handled the reins with steady hands, but Theresa could sense his tension. "Nothing has to change," he said finally. "I meant what I said before. You will keep your room and I will stay in the loft. This was about practicality, and I will not ask for more than you are willing to give." Theresa looked at this man who was now her husband, at the rigid set of his shoulders and the careful distance he maintained. Something in her chest ached at his isolation, at the walls he had built around himself. "Aaron," she said softly, "why are you so determined to keep me at a distance?" He was quiet for so long that she thought he might not answer. Then he said, "Because I know what I am offering is not enough. You deserve someone who can give you romance and poetry, not just hard work and a roof over your head. I do not want you to feel trapped or obligated to pretend feelings you do not have. What if I told you that kindness and honesty are worth more than poetry?" Theresa asked. "What if I said that in the short time I have known you, I have seen more genuine goodness than I ever saw in Boston?" Aaron pulled the wagon to a stop, even though they were still a quarter-mile from the house. He turned to look at her, his eyes searching her face in the fading light. "I do not want you to settle for less than you deserve. Maybe you should let me decide what I deserve," Theresa said. She reached out and placed her hand over his where it rested on his knee. "I am not asking for promises or declarations, Aaron. I am just asking you not to shut me out completely. Can we at least try to be friends?" His hand turned under hers, his calloused fingers closing gently around her smaller hand. "Friends," he said, and his voice was rough with emotion. "Yes, I would like that." The autumn days grew shorter and colder. Theresa settled into her role as mistress of the house, taking pride in the changes she made. She sewed new curtains from fabric Martha sold her at a generous discount. She reorganized the kitchen to make cooking more efficient. She even convinced Aaron to let her help with some of the outdoor chores, feeding the chickens and gathering eggs, tending the small vegetable garden that she was determined to expand come spring. Aaron remained in the loft, but the distance between them seemed to narrow with each passing day. He began lingering after meals, helping her with the dishes while Cal retreated to the bunkhouse. They talked about everything and nothing. He told her about his dreams for the ranch, his plans to expand the herd and maybe buy the adjoining property if old Peterson ever decided to sell. She told him about her childhood, about her father's laugh and her mother's songs, about the dreams she had once had before poverty stole them away. One evening in late October, Theresa was reading by the fire when she heard a sound from outside, a cry of pain that made her heart lurch. She rushed to the door and found Aaron limping up from the barn, his left arm cradled against his chest and blood seeping through his shirt. "It is nothing," he said through gritted teeth as she pulled him inside. "One of the horses spooked and I got kicked, just bruised." "Sit down," Theresa ordered, pushing him into a chair. "Cal, go get hot water and clean cloths." Cal had appeared from the bunkhouse at the commotion and hurried to help. Theresa carefully peeled away Aaron's shirt and found an ugly gash on his upper arm along with already darkening bruises along his ribs. "This needs stitches," she said firmly. "You know how?" Aaron asked, his face pale. "My mother taught me. She used to help the neighbors in our tenement when they could not afford a doctor." Theresa's hands were steady as she cleaned the wound, though her heart was racing. "This is going to hurt." "I have had worse," Aaron said, but his jaw was tight as she worked. Cal held the lamp close while Theresa stitched the gash with quick, neat movements. Aaron did not make a sound, though she could see the strain in his face. When she finished, she wrapped his arm and his ribs carefully. "You need to rest for a few days," she said. "Let these heal properly." "The cattle need tending," Aaron protested. "Cal and I can manage," Theresa said. "Cannot we, Cal?" Cal nodded. "She is right, brother. You are no good to anyone if you tear those stitches open or crack a rib worse." Aaron looked like he wanted to argue, but another wave of pain crossed his face and he nodded reluctantly. "Just for a day or two." It took 3 days before Aaron would admit he was well enough to do light work, and even then Theresa watched him carefully for any signs of strain. During those days of forced rest, Aaron spent more time in the house, and Theresa discovered that he was not as quiet as she had thought. He had opinions about everything from politics to the best way to break a horse, and he listened to her thoughts with genuine interest. One afternoon she found him looking through an old book, his expression wistful. "What are you reading?" she asked. "Poetry," he admitted, looking almost embarrassed. "My mother's book. I told you she loved music, but she also loved words. She used to read to us when we were boys." He held up the worn volume. "I never had much education, but she made sure we could read and write. Said ignorance was a worse prison than poverty." Theresa sat down beside him. "Read something to me." He looked surprised but opened the book to a marked page. His voice was hesitant at first, but it grew stronger as he read verses about love and nature and the passage of time. When he finished, Theresa found herself blinking back unexpected tears. "That was beautiful," she said. "My mother marked her favorites," Aaron said, running his fingers over the page. "Sometimes I read them and I can almost hear her voice." Without thinking, Theresa reached out and took his hand. "Thank you for sharing that with me." Aaron looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face. Something shifted in his expression, a softening that made Theresa's breath catch. "Theresa," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "When I sent that advertisement, I was looking for help. Someone practical who could cook and clean and help make this ranch work. I was not looking for anything more because I did not think I had the right to ask for it." He paused, seeming to struggle for words. "But you have been here for almost 2 months now, and you have become so much more than I expected. You work hard, yes, but you also make this house feel like a home. You listen when I talk and you laugh at Cal's terrible jokes and you fit here in a way I did not dare hope for." Theresa's heart was pounding. "Aaron, what are you saying?" I am saying that I do not want you sleeping in the spare room because it is proper or because we agreed that this would be a marriage of convenience. I want you there because I care about you, because somewhere along the way I stopped seeing you as the mail-order bride who came to save me and started seeing you as Theresa, the woman who makes me want to be better. He took a shaky breath. I am saying that I am falling in love with you, and I understand if you do not feel the same way, but I needed you to know. Theresa felt tears spill over onto her cheeks. You stubborn man, she said, but she was smiling. I have been falling in love with you since that first dance, maybe even since you were so careful helping me into the wagon that first day. I kept waiting for you to see it, to notice, but you were so determined to be noble and keep your distance. Aaron stared at her. You love me. Yes, Theresa said simply. I love you, Aaron York. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you take care of everyone around you. I love that you read poetry and that you miss your mother and that you are trying so hard to build something good here. He reached up with his good arm and cupped her face gently. I do not deserve you. Then I suppose we will have to agree to disagree on that, Theresa said, leaning into his touch. When he kissed her this time, it was nothing like the chaste peck at their wedding. It was slow and sweet and full of all the feeling they had been holding back. Theresa felt like she was melting, like every cold and frightened part of her was finally warming in the shelter of his affection. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Aaron rested his forehead against hers. Will you come up to the loft tonight? He asked softly. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Yes, Theresa whispered. Yes, I will. Cal took one look at them at dinner that evening and broke into a huge grin. Finally, he said. I thought I was going to have to lock you two in a closet together. Aaron threw a biscuit at him, but he was smiling. That night, Theresa climbed the ladder to the loft with her heart racing. The space was simple but clean, with a large bed covered in quilts and a window that looked out at the stars. Aaron was waiting, looking nervous and hopeful all at once. I have never done this before, Theresa admitted, her voice quiet. Neither have I, Aaron said. We will figure it out together. And they did, with gentle touches and whispered words, with laughter when they fumbled and sweetness when they found the rhythm. Afterward, lying in Aaron's arms with her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, Theresa felt a peace she had never known before. I love you, Aaron murmured into her hair. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret coming here. I could never regret it, Theresa said. You gave me everything I had lost. You gave me a home and a future and love. You gave me happiness when I expected nothing but hardship. The first snow came in November, transforming the ranch into a world of white. Theresa stood at the kitchen window, watching the flakes fall, and marveled at the beauty of it. In Boston, snow had meant wet feet and cold that seeped into your bones and nowhere warm to shelter. Here, with a fire crackling in the hearth and Aaron working beside her, it was something different. Something peaceful. Aaron had moved her things to the loft, and now they shared the space as husband and wife in truth. The nights were cold, but they kept each other warm, and Theresa discovered that marriage was not the burden she had feared but a source of joy. Aaron was attentive and affectionate, always making sure she was comfortable, always asking what she needed. Cal teased them mercilessly about their obvious happiness, but his pleasure was genuine. I like having a sister, he told Theresa one morning while Aaron was out checking on the cattle. And I like seeing my brother smile again. You are good for him. He is good for me too, Theresa said. December brought bitter cold and several heavy snowstorms that left them trapped inside for days at a time. Theresa used the time to sew, making warm shirts for both brothers and a heavy coat for Aaron. She had discovered that she was skilled with a needle, and the work gave her satisfaction. On Christmas Eve, Aaron presented her with a gift wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a beautiful shawl, far finer than anything Theresa had owned since her father died. The wool was soft and warm, dyed a deep green that Aaron said matched her eyes. "I had Martha order it special from Salt Lake City," he said, watching anxiously as she unwrapped it. "I wanted you to have something nice." Theresa threw her arms around him, overwhelmed. "It is beautiful, thank you." She pulled back to look at him. "I did not get you anything so fine." "You have given me everything," Aaron said seriously. "You have made this house a home. You have given me someone to talk to laugh with, to build a life with. That is worth more than any gift I could buy." Theresa gave him the shirt she had made, and his face lit up with genuine pleasure. "You made this. Theresa, this is incredible. Look at these stitches." Cal received a similar shirt, and he immediately put it on and paraded around the room, declaring himself the most fashionable rancher in Utah Territory. They spent Christmas Day inside, safe from the howling wind, eating a feast that Theresa had prepared and playing cards by the fire. It was simple and perfect, and Theresa found herself thinking of all the Christmases she had spent cold and hungry, wondering how she could ever have imagined that one day she would be this content. As winter deepened, Theresa began to suspect that she might be pregnant. Her monthly courses were late, and she felt tired in a way that was different from the exhaustion of hard work. She waited another week to be sure, then told Aaron one night as they lay together in the darkness. "A baby," he said, his voice filled with wonder. He placed his hand gently on her stomach. "Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be without seeing a doctor. All the signs are there." Aaron pulled her close, and she could feel him trembling. "I am going to be a father," he whispered. "Theresa, we are going to have a child. Are you happy?" She asked, though she could hear the joy in his voice. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Aaron said. "Terrified too, but mostly happy. So incredibly happy." The news transformed Aaron into an even more attentive husband. He fussed over her constantly, insisting she rest more and lift nothing heavy. Cal was equally excited, already making plans to teach his future niece or nephew to ride. "What if it is a nephew?" Theresa asked, amused. "Then I will teach him to ride," Cal said reasonably. "And rope, and all the important things." "And if it is a niece?" "Same thing," Cal said. "This is the West, Theresa. Out here, girls need to know how to handle themselves just as much as boys." Theresa liked that attitude, so different from the rigid expectations she had grown up with in Boston. Spring came slowly, the snow melting to reveal brown earth that gradually greened as the weather warmed. Theresa's belly swelled, and she felt the baby move for the first time in April, a flutter like butterfly wings that made her gasp and laugh. Aaron insisted on riding to town to fetch Martha Henderson, who had experience as a midwife. Martha came and examined Theresa, pronouncing her healthy and the baby strong. "You are doing everything right," Martha said approvingly. "Eating well, getting exercise but not overdoing it. The baby should come in late summer, I would guess." Theresa threw herself into preparing for the baby's arrival. She sewed tiny gowns and blankets, washed and sorted the baby clothes that had belonged to Aaron and Cal as infants. Aaron built a beautiful cradle from wood he had been saving, sanding it smooth and carving simple flowers into the sides. "My father made one for me and Cal," he explained as he worked. "But it was lost in a fire years ago. I wanted our child to have something just as special. Their child." The words filled Theresa with warmth every time she heard them. The baby came on a hot August evening, 3 weeks before Theresa's due date. The pain started in the afternoon, and by the time Aaron returned from the range, Theresa was gripping the edge of the table and breathing hard. Cal rode for Martha while Aaron stayed with Theresa, his face pale but his hands steady as he helped her to the bedroom. Martha arrived within the hour and took charge with calm efficiency. "First babies usually take their time," she said, "but this one seems eager to meet the world." The labor was long and hard, and there were moments when Theresa thought she could not bear another minute of it. But Aaron stayed with her throughout, holding her hand and wiping the sweat from her face, murmuring encouragement even when she cursed at him through the pain. Finally, as the sun was setting, Martha said, "One more push, Theresa. Come on, you can do this." Theresa bore down with all her strength, and suddenly the room was filled with the sound of a baby crying. Martha worked quickly, and then she placed a small, red-faced, squalling infant on Theresa's chest. "A boy," Martha announced, smiling. "A healthy baby boy." Theresa looked down at her son through tears, at his tiny fingers and the shock of dark hair on his head. He had Aaron's nose, she thought, and possibly his chin. "He is perfect," Aaron said hoarsely, reaching out to touch the baby's head with one gentle finger. "Theresa, he is perfect." They named him Andrew after Aaron's father. Andrew James York, born August 20th, 1879, weighing 7 pounds and already possessing a set of lungs that could wake the dead. Cal was completely smitten with his nephew, often stopping by just to stare at the baby sleeping in his cradle. "He is so small," he marveled. "Was I ever that small?" "You were," Aaron said, "and just as loud, according to my mother." The first weeks with Andrew were exhausting and wonderful. Theresa had never been so tired, but she had also never felt such overwhelming love. Aaron proved to be a natural father, patient and gentle with the baby, happy to walk the floor with Andrew at 3 in the morning so Theresa could sleep. "I could get used to this," he said one night, cradling Andrew against his chest while the baby dozed. "Having a family, I mean. A real family." "You have always had family," Theresa pointed out. "Cal, your parents before they passed. I know. But this is different. This is the family I chose, the family we are building together." He looked at her with such love that Theresa felt her eyes well up. "You and Andrew, you are my whole world now." As Andrew grew from a newborn to an infant who could hold his head up and smile, the ranch prospered. Aaron and Cal expanded the herd, bought some of Peterson's land when the old trapper decided to move to California to live with his daughter. The extra pasture meant they could support more cattle, and the sale of steers that fall brought in more money than they had seen in years. "We should hire some help," Aaron said one evening, going over the accounts. "We can afford it now, and it would take some of the pressure off." Cal deserves to have time to court Emma Henderson properly instead of working sunup to sundown every day. "Cal is courting Emma?" Theresa asked, surprised and pleased. Aaron grinned. "He thinks I have not noticed, but he rides into town every Sunday after church and does not come back until dark." Where else would he be? They hired 2 hands, cowboys who had worked for the big ranches to the south and were looking for steadier employment. Tom was in his 30s, quiet and competent. Billy was barely 20, enthusiastic and still learning, but willing to work hard. With extra help, life on the ranch became a bit easier. Aaron had more time to spend with Theresa and Andrew. He taught his son to ride before the boy was even 2, setting him on a gentle old mare while he led her around the corral. Andrew squealed with delight, fearless even at that young age. "He is going to be trouble," Theresa predicted, watching her son kick his heels and demand to go faster. "He is going to be a rancher," Aaron said proudly. "Cal married Emma in the spring of 1881, and they built a small house on the edge of the property." Emma was sweet and practical, a perfect match for Cal's exuberance. She and Theresa became close friends, and it was a comfort to have another woman nearby. Andrew gained a cousin less than a year later, when Emma gave birth to a daughter named Sarah. The two children were inseparable from the start, partners in mischief and adventure. Theresa gave birth to a second son in the winter of 1882. They named him Michael, and he was calmer than his older brother, content to watch the world with serious gray eyes that reminded Theresa of her mother. Life settled into a rhythm of work and family, of seasons changing and children growing. The ranch continued to prosper. Aaron became a respected voice in the valley, known for his fairness and good judgment. Theresa found her place in the community, helping organize social events and assisting Martha with midwifery when extra hands were needed. She never forgot where she had come from, those desperate months in Boston when survival was all she could hope for. Sometimes she would take out her mother's shawl, the one she had carried west, and compare it to the fine one Aaron had given her. The contrast reminded her of how far she had come, how much her life had changed. One evening in the summer of 1885, as she and Aaron sat on the porch watching Andrew and Michael play in the yard, she turned to him and said, "Do you remember when I first arrived? You were so nervous and I was terrified." Aaron smiled. "I remember thinking you were the prettiest thing I had ever seen and being sure you would take one look at this rough ranch and run back to Boston." "I had nowhere to run to," Theresa said. "That is why I stayed." "Is it?" Aaron asked gently. "I think you stayed because even then you saw the possibilities here, not just survival but a real life." Theresa leaned her head on his shoulder. "I expected hardship. I expected to work myself to the bone just to earn my keep. I never expected to find love." "I never expected you." "The feeling is mutual," Aaron said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "You came here saving my life, even if you did not know it. I was just going through the motions after my parents died, working to work, existing but not really living. You changed all that. You gave me a reason to build something, to dream about the future again." "We built it together," Theresa said. "That is the difference." Andrew came running up to the porch, his face flushed with excitement. "Papa, can we go fishing tomorrow? Uncle Cal said the creek is full of trout." "I think we can arrange that," Aaron said, ruffling his son's hair. "As long as you promise to bait your own hook this time." Andrew made a face but nodded. Michael, who had followed his brother at a more sedate pace, climbed up into Theresa's lap and yawned hugely. "Someone is tired," Theresa said, cuddling him close. "I am not tired," Michael mumbled, even as his eyes drifted shut. Aaron carried Michael inside to bed while Theresa convinced Andrew that sleep was necessary if they were going fishing the next day. By the time both boys were settled, the stars were coming out. Theresa and Aaron returned to the porch, sitting close together in the warm darkness. From the little house at the edge of the property, they could hear Cal playing his harmonica, a soft melody that drifted on the evening breeze. "I have been thinking," Aaron said, "about expanding the house, adding on a proper parlor, maybe another bedroom. We are doing well enough to afford it, and it would give us more space." "That sounds wonderful," Theresa said, "though I am quite happy with what we have now. I know. But I want to give you more. I want to give you everything." Theresa turned to look at him. Even after 7 years of marriage, his face was still her favorite sight in the world. The lines around his eyes had deepened from squinting into the sun, and there were a few threads of silver in his hair, but he was still the man who had met her in Kelton all those years ago, gentle and kind and determined to do right. "You have already given me everything," she said. "You gave me a home when I had none. You gave me love when I thought I was beyond deserving it. You gave me children and a future and a life I am proud of. What more could I possibly want?" Aaron pulled her close, and they sat together in the darkness, content in each other's presence. The wind whispered through the cottonwoods, carrying the scent of sage and earth. Somewhere in the distance, A coyote called, and the horses in the corral shuffled and nickered in response. This was home, Theresa thought. Not just the house or the land, but this feeling of belonging, of being exactly where she was meant to be. She had traveled across a continent to marry a stranger, expecting nothing but the bare minimum of survival. And instead, she had found everything she had ever needed. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and challenges. There was the winter of '86 when a late blizzard killed several head of cattle, and they had to tighten their belts for months. The summer of '88 when drought threatened the creek, and they had to haul water for the livestock. The autumn of '89 when Michael fell from the hayloft and broke his arm, giving Theresa the worst fright of her life, until the doctor assured her the boy would heal perfectly. But there were far more good times than bad. Andrew's 10th birthday when Aaron gave him his first rope and taught him to lasso fence posts. The Christmas when Theresa surprised everyone by playing the piano that Aaron had bought and hauled all the way from Salt Lake City, revealing a talent she had not mentioned because she thought she would never have the chance to use it again. The spring dance of '91 when both boys performed in a recitation, and Aaron beamed with pride. Emma and Cal had 3 more children, 2 boys and another girl. The York Ranch became a gathering place for the extended family, especially on Sundays when everyone came together for big dinners that filled the house with noise and laughter. Theresa gave birth to 1 more child in the winter of 1892, a daughter they named Rose. She had Theresa's blonde hair and Aaron's blue eyes, and her father spoiled her shamelessly. "You are going to ruin that girl," Theresa warned, watching Aaron let 3-year-old Rose ride on his shoulders while she shrieked with delight. "She is my only daughter," Aaron said. "I am allowed to spoil her a little." Andrew and Michael adored their baby sister, both of them protective and indulgent. Rose grew up surrounded by love, fearless and bright, already showing signs of her mother's practical nature and her father's steady temperament. When Andrew turned 16 in the summer of '95, he started talking seriously about his future on the ranch. Aaron began teaching him the business side of things, showing him the account books and explaining the decisions that went into running a successful operation. "He is a natural," Aaron told Theresa one evening. "Smart and hardworking, this place will be in good hands when he takes over." "When he takes over," Theresa repeated. "You are not planning on going anywhere, are you?" Aaron laughed and pulled her close. "Not for many years yet, I hope. But it is good to know the next generation is ready." Michael, at 13, showed more interest in books than cattle. He spent hours reading anything he could get his hands on, talking about maybe becoming a teacher or even a lawyer. Aaron supported this ambition, even though it meant Michael might not stay on the ranch. "Every child should follow their own path," he said. "Michael will make his mark in the world one way or another." Rose, at 3, was still mostly interested in chasing chickens and helping her mother bake cookies, but she showed early signs of a sharp mind and a stubborn will. On their 17th wedding anniversary in the fall of '95, Aaron took Theresa on a picnic to the place where he had stopped the wagon that first day, when she had asked him to be her friend. They left the children with Cal and Emma and rode out in the early afternoon. Aaron had packed a basket with all of Theresa's favorite foods, along with a bottle of wine that had been saving for a special occasion. They spread a blanket under the same cottonwoods where they had shared their first real conversation, and ate and talked and laughed together. 17 years, Aaron mused. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, and sometimes it feels like just yesterday that you stepped off that stagecoach looking so determined and so scared. "I was terrified," Theresa admitted. "I was trying so hard to be brave, but I had no idea what I was walking into." "And what did you walk into?" Aaron asked, a smile playing around his lips. "Happiness," Theresa said simply. "I walked into a life beyond anything I could have imagined. I found a partner, a best friend, a love that has carried me through every challenge. I found home." Aaron took her hand, raising it to his lips. "You gave me all of those things too. I was so focused on just surviving, on keeping the ranch going and taking care of Cal. I had forgotten how to really live. You reminded me. You showed me that life is about more than work and duty. It is about love and laughter and building something meaningful." They stayed until sunset, watching the sky turn brilliant shades of orange and pink. On the ride home, Theresa thought about all the twists and turns that had brought her to this moment. The tragedy of losing her parents, the desperation that had driven her to answer that advertisement, the leap of faith it had taken to travel across the country to marry a stranger. Every hardship, every loss, every difficult choice had led her here, to this life with this man. And she would not change a single moment of it. Back at the ranch, the children were waiting on the porch, eager to show them the cake that Emma had helped them bake in secret. It was lopsided and the frosting was uneven, but it was made with love, and that made it perfect. They gathered around the kitchen table, the whole family including Cal and Emma and their children, and cut the cake and told stories and celebrated. This was what Theresa had longed for in those dark days in Boston, even when she did not know how to name it. This sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than herself. As the evening wound down and the relatives headed home, as the children were put to bed and the house grew quiet, Theresa and Aaron climbed the ladder to their loft. The space had changed over the years. The simple bed had been replaced with a finer one. There was a wardrobe now, and a comfortable chair by the window where Theresa liked to sit and sew. But the feeling was the same. This was their sanctuary, the place where they came together at the end of each day to share their thoughts and dreams, to hold each other and remember why they were doing all of this. "You ever miss Boston?" Aaron asked as they settled into bed. Theresa considered the question. "I miss my mother sometimes. I wish she could have met you and seen the life we have built. But Boston itself? No. That city holds nothing but painful memories for me. This is my home now, truly and completely." "Good," Aaron said, pulling her close, "because I cannot imagine this life without you. You are the heart of everything here, Theresa. The heart of this family, this home, my life." Theresa kissed him, pouring 17 years of love and gratitude into the gesture. "And you are mine," she whispered. "My anchor, my partner, my love. Thank you for taking a chance on a desperate girl from Boston. Thank you for taking a chance on a lonely rancher in Utah," Aaron replied. They held each other in the darkness, listening to the familiar sounds of the ranch settling for the night. The wind in the eaves, the horses moving in the barn, the creak of wood adjusting to the cooling temperature. These were the sounds of home, as familiar and comforting as Aaron's heartbeat under her ear. The years continued their steady march. Andrew courted and married a neighbor's daughter in 1898, bringing Mary to the ranch as his bride. Aaron built them a house on the property, keeping the family close. Michael left for college in '99, determined to study law. It was hard to see him go, but Theresa was proud of his ambition. Rose grew into a spirited teenager, more interested in learning to rope cattle than in the domestic arts, much to Aaron's amusement and Theresa's exasperation. "She is too much like her father," Theresa complained, but she was smiling when she said it. Andrew and Mary gave them their first grandchild in 1900, a boy they named Aaron after his grandfather. Watching Aaron hold his namesake, tears streaming down his face, Theresa fell in love with her husband all over again. Cal and Emma's children grew up alongside the York children, creating a tight-knit clan that dominated the valley. The ranch continued to prosper, becoming one of the largest and most successful operations in the territory. When Utah achieved statehood in 1896, Aaron celebrated by flying the American flag from the porch every day. "We are part of something bigger now," he told his children. "Part of the United States of America. Your children will grow up as full citizens of this country." Theresa stood beside him, watching the flag snap in the wind, and thought about how far they had all come. From survival to prosperity, from strangers to soulmates, from a house to a home filled with love and life. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1903, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Andrew and Mary were there with their 3 children. Michael came home from law school, bringing news that he had been offered a position with a firm in Denver. Cal and Emma brought their 5 children, all of them growing tall and strong. Rose, now 11, helped organize the festivities with her characteristic determination. The party was held in the barn, which had been decorated with bunting and lanterns. There was music and dancing, food enough to feed an army, and speeches that made both Theresa and Aaron blush. "To my parents," Andrew said, raising his glass, "who showed all of us what love and partnership really look like, who built something from nothing and created a legacy that will last for generations." "To Theresa," Cal added, "who came west expecting hardship and instead brought happiness to all of us. We are all richer for having you in our lives." Theresa looked around at all the faces, young and old, all connected to her in some way. This family that had grown from 2 strangers and a marriage of convenience. This life that had blossomed in the harsh soil of the Utah territory. When it was her turn to speak, she found herself struggling for words. Finally, she said simply, 25 years ago, I came here with nothing but a battered trunk and a heart full of fear. I expected to work hard and endure. I never expected to find a partner who would become my best friend. I never expected to be surrounded by so much love and joy. Aaron, you gave me everything. You gave me a reason to hope again, a place to call home, and a love that has sustained me through every challenge. I am the luckiest woman in the world." Aaron pulled her close and kissed her in front of everyone, prompting cheers and applause from their children and grandchildren. "The luck is all mine," he said softly, just for her. "You are my everything, Theresa. Today, tomorrow, and always." They danced together as the sun set, moving to music played by neighbors and friends. Theresa rested her head on Aaron's shoulder and thought about that first dance at the church hall, when they had been practically strangers trying to navigate the expectations of their community. Now they moved together with the ease of long practice, each anticipating the other's steps perfectly in sync. This was what happiness looked like, Theresa thought. Not the absence of hardship, because there had been plenty of that over the years, but the presence of love strong enough to weather any storm. The comfort of knowing you had someone to face the challenges with. The joy of building something lasting and good. As the stars came out overhead, Theresa and Aaron slipped away from the party, walking hand in hand to their favorite spot under the cottonwoods. They sat together in the darkness, listening to the music and laughter drifting from the barn. "You have any regrets?" Aaron asked. Theresa thought about it seriously. "Only that we did not have more time with our parents. I wish my mother and father could have seen all of this. I wish your parents could have known their grandchildren. They would have been proud," Aaron said. "Of you, of us, of what we have built together." "What about you? Any regrets?" Aaron was quiet for a moment. "I regret all the time I wasted keeping you at a distance those first few months. I could have had more time loving you instead of trying to be noble." Theresa laughed softly. I think it made it sweeter when we finally admitted our feelings. Sometimes the waiting makes the having that much better. Maybe, Aaron conceded, but I still wish I had kissed you that first day instead of waiting weeks. You were terrified, Theresa reminded him. You thought I would run away. And now I know you are too stubborn to run from anything, Aaron said fondly. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. After a while, Aaron said, I have been thinking about the future. Andrew is ready to take over more of the ranch operations. Michael has his career in Denver. Rose will forge her own path, whatever that might be. It is time for us to start stepping back a bit, enjoying the fruits of all our hard work. What did you have in mind? Theresa asked. Maybe some travel. We could visit Michael in Denver, see some of the country beyond Utah. Or we could just spend more time together, the two of us. We have always been so busy with the ranch and the children. It would be nice to just focus on each other for a while. Theresa liked the sound of that. We could do both. Travel some, but always come home here. Always home here, Aaron agreed. This land, this place, it is part of us now, but we have earned the right to enjoy it instead of just working ourselves to exhaustion. As they walked back to the party, Theresa felt a deep contentment settle over her. She had come to Utah territory expecting nothing but hardship, prepared to endure whatever was necessary to survive. Instead, she had found love and family, purpose and belonging. She had found happiness in the most unexpected of places, with the most unexpected of men. Aaron York had promised her shelter and partnership. He had given her so much more. He had given her a life worth living, a love worth cherishing, and a legacy that would outlast them both. And as they rejoined their family, as children and grandchildren surrounded them with affection and joy, Theresa knew that this was the real treasure. Not the prosperous ranch or the material comforts, but the connections forged through love and strengthened through the years. This family, this love, this life they had built together from nothing but hope and determination. The party continued late into the night, and when it finally wound down, Aaron and Theresa climbed the ladder to their loft for the last time that day. They were older now, with silver in their hair and lines on their faces, but the love between them was as strong as ever. 25 years, Theresa mused as they prepared for bed. It sounds like such a long time, but it has gone by so quickly. We have at least 25 more, Aaron said firmly. I plan to keep you around for a good long while yet. Theresa smiled at his confidence. I think I would like that. Growing old with you, watching our grandchildren grow up, maybe even seeing some great-grandchildren. Definitely seeing great-grandchildren, Aaron said. Andrew and Mary show no signs of stopping at 3 children. They settled into bed, and Aaron pulled Theresa close. This was her favorite moment of every day, this quiet time when it was just the two of them, no demands or responsibilities, just the simple pleasure of being together. I love you, Aaron whispered into the darkness. I loved you when you first arrived, even though I was too scared to admit it. I loved you when you tended my wounds and when you gave me sons and a daughter. I loved you through every season and every challenge, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond. Theresa felt tears sting her eyes. After all these years, Aaron could still move her with his words. I love you too. You saved my life in more ways than one. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed me what real love looks like. I am so grateful that I answered your advertisement, that I took that leap of faith. Best decision either of us ever made, Aaron said. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by the sounds of home and the warmth of a love that had only deepened with time. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Theresa woke to find Aaron already up, standing at the loft window and looking out over the ranch. She joined him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "All of this," Aaron said, gesturing to the view. "Everything we have built. I was just thinking how different my life would be if you had not come here. I would probably still be getting by, but I would not be truly living. You brought life to this place, Theresa. You brought joy and love and meaning." "We did it together," Theresa said. "Everything we have accomplished, we did as partners." "The best partnership I could have asked for," Aaron agreed. They went downstairs to find Rose already in the kitchen, making breakfast with surprising competence for an 11-year-old. "I thought you and Papa deserved to sleep in after the party," she explained. "Besides, Mama has been teaching me and I wanted to practice." Theresa hugged her daughter. "You are a wonderful girl, Rose, thank you." Over breakfast they made plans for the day. Andrew would be coming by to discuss some ranch business with Aaron. Mary wanted Theresa's help with a sewing project. Rose had lessons with the tutor they had hired to educate the younger children in the valley. It was an ordinary day, full of ordinary tasks and familiar routines. But Theresa had learned long ago that ordinary was extraordinary when you were living it with people you loved, in a place you had made your own through years of hard work and dedication. As she cleared the breakfast dishes, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. She was 44 years old now, no longer the desperate 19-year-old who had stepped off the stagecoach in Kelton. There were lines around her eyes and threads of silver in her blonde hair. Her hands were rougher than they had been, calloused from years of work. But her eyes were bright with contentment, and there was a peace in her expression that the younger Theresa had never known. She looked like a woman who had lived fully and loved deeply, who had faced challenges and overcome them, who had built something meaningful with her life. Aaron came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "Just about how far we have come," Theresa said, leaning back against him. "About all the things that had to happen to bring us to this moment. Any second thoughts?" Aaron asked, a teasing note in his voice. Theresa turned in his arms to face him. "Not a single one. This life, this love, this family, it is everything I ever needed and more than I ever dared to dream. You gave me happiness when I expected nothing but hardship, Aaron. You gave me a future when I thought I had none. You gave me everything." Aaron kissed her slow and sweet. "And you gave me the same. We are even, I think." "More than even," Theresa said. "We are blessed." The years continued to unfold in a pattern of seasons and celebrations, challenges and triumphs. Andrew and Mary had 5 children in total, filling the ranch with young voices and laughter. Michael married a woman he met in Denver and started his own family, though he visited as often as his law practice allowed. Rose surprised everyone by becoming a teacher, opening a school for the children in the valley and proving to be both strict and beloved. Aaron and Theresa aged gracefully together, their hair turning silver, their steps slowing but their love never diminishing. They took that trip to Denver to visit Michael, and another to San Francisco to see the ocean. But they always returned home to the ranch in Utah, to the land they had built their life upon on their 50th wedding anniversary in 1928. 3 generations gathered to celebrate. Theresa and Aaron were both 70 now, still sharp and active despite their age. They sat in places of honor while their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren swirled around them. Cal had passed away 2 years earlier, and they missed him terribly. But Emma was there with all her children and grandchildren. The ranch had been divided between Andrew and 2 of Cal's sons, keeping it in the family. 50 years, Andrew said in his speech. Half a century of love and partnership. My parents have shown all of us what marriage should be. Not always easy, but always worth it. Built on respect and affection, strengthened through shared challenges and deepened by time. Michael added. They taught us that home is not just a place, but the people you love and the life you build with them. Everything I have accomplished, I owe to the foundation they gave me. Rose, now a dignified woman of 36, wiped away tears as she spoke. Mama and Papa, you gave us the greatest gift children can receive, the example of true love. You showed us what it means to be partners, to support each other, to face life's challenges together. Your love has been the bedrock of this family. When Theresa stood to speak, her voice was still strong despite her age. 70 years ago, I was born into a world I did not choose. 19 years after that, I found myself alone and desperate, with nothing but my own determination to keep me alive. I answered an advertisement from a stranger offering partnership and survival. I expected hardship. I expected to work until I dropped just to earn my keep. I never expected love. She looked at Aaron, who smiled at her with eyes that still held all the tenderness of their youth. But love found me anyway, in the form of a kind man who kept his promises and exceeded every expectation. Aaron, you have been my partner, my friend, my great love for 50 years. You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. You have shown me that happiness is possible even after tragedy, that home can be found even in the most unlikely places. I love you more today than I did 50 years ago, and that is saying something, because I loved you very much even then. Aaron stood and took her hands. Theresa, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You brought light into my life when I did not even realize I was living in darkness. You gave me purpose and joy and a reason to build something lasting. Every day with you has been a gift. I love you with everything I am, and I will love you until my last breath. They kissed while their family cheered, and Theresa felt the same flutter in her chest that she had felt the first time Aaron truly kissed her all those decades ago. The party continued late into the evening, but eventually, Aaron and Theresa slipped away to their loft. Moving was harder now, and Aaron helped Theresa up the ladder with patient care. They sat together in the chair by the window, looking out at the ranch bathed in moonlight. "Do you remember when I first brought you here?" Aaron asked. "You looked so small and scared sitting in that wagon." "I was terrified," Theresa admitted, "but I was also hopeful. Even then, I think some part of me knew that this could be a new beginning." "Best beginning I could have asked for," Aaron said. He was quiet for a moment, then added, "I have been thinking about our legacy, about what we are leaving behind." "We are leaving love," Theresa said simply. "Look at all those people downstairs. Every one of them exists because we took a chance on each other. Every one of them has been shaped by the love we showed them. That is a legacy worth having." Aaron nodded. "You are right. I used to think legacy was about land and money, things you could pass down. But it is really about the values you instill, the example you set, the love you share. We have done well in that regard." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. After a while, Aaron said, "I am tired, my love. Would you help me to bed?" Something in his tone made Theresa look at him more closely. He looked pale, and there was a tightness around his eyes that spoke of pain he was trying to hide. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked, concern sharpening her voice. "Just tired," Aaron said. "It has been a long, wonderful day, but a long one nonetheless." Theresa helped him to bed, noting how heavily he leaned on her. She settled him under the quilts and lay down beside him, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Theresa," Aaron said softly, "I need you to know something. If this is my last night, if I do not wake in the morning, I need you to know that every day with you was a blessing. I have lived a full, happy life because of you. I have no regrets, only gratitude." "Do not talk like that," Theresa said, fear gripping her heart. "You are fine. We have many more years together." "I hope so," Aaron said, But just in case I needed to say it, I love you, Theresa Ann York. You are my heart, my home, my everything. I love you too, Theresa whispered, holding his hand tightly, always and forever. Aaron fell asleep shortly after, his breathing deep and even. Theresa lay awake for a long time, listening to him breathe, praying that the morning would find him well. She must have dozed eventually, because she woke to gray dawn light and a terrible silence. Aaron's hand was still in hers, but it was cold. His chest was still. Theresa knew even before she touched his face, before she called his name with increasing desperation, that he was gone. He had passed peacefully in his sleep, after a full day of celebration surrounded by everyone he loved. If there could be a good death, this was it. But that knowledge did nothing to ease the tearing pain in Theresa's chest as she held her husband's body and sobbed. The family came running when they heard her cries. Andrew took charge with gentle efficiency, sending for the doctor even though it was too late, gathering his siblings and his mother in his arms. Rose wept openly while Michael stood rigid with shock. The funeral was held 3 days later, and it seemed like everyone in the valley came to pay their respects. Aaron York had been a pillar of the community for over 50 years, and his passing was felt deeply. Theresa stood at the graveside, supported by her children, and listened to the preacher talk about Aaron's good life and good works. But the words that mattered most were the ones Theresa spoke when it was her turn. "He was a good man," she said simply. "The best I ever knew. He gave me everything: a home, a family, a love that sustained me through every trial. I will miss him every day for the rest of my life, but I am grateful for every moment we had together." The days after the funeral were the hardest Theresa had ever endured. The house felt empty without Aaron's presence. She found herself listening for his footsteps, expecting to see him come through the door. At night, the bed was too big and too cold without him beside her, but she was not alone. Her children rallied around her, taking turns staying with her, making sure she ate and rested. Andrew handled the ranch business, consulting with her but not burdening her with details. Rose read to her in the evenings, the way Aaron used to. Michael came from Denver and stayed for 2 weeks, just sitting with her and remembering his father. Slowly, painfully, Theresa began to adjust to her new reality. She was a widow at 70, something she had never imagined when she married Aaron all those years ago. She had assumed they would have more time, that death was still far in the future. But life had other plans. She found comfort in her family, in the grandchildren and great-grandchildren who filled her days with noise and life. She found purpose in preserving Aaron's legacy, telling stories about him to the youngest ones who would never know him themselves, and she found peace in the memories. 50 years of love, of partnership, of building a life together. Aaron had given her happiness when she expected only hardship. He had shown her what real love looked like, and while she grieved his loss terribly, she would not trade a single moment of their time together. Theresa lived for another 8 years after Aaron's death, growing frail but never losing her sharp mind or her warm heart. She remained on the ranch, cared for by her children, a beloved matriarch who held the family together with her stories and her wisdom. On a warm summer evening in 1936, surrounded by 3 generations of family, Theresa Ann York closed her eyes for the last time. She was 78 years old, and she went peacefully, with a smile on her face. They buried her beside Aaron, under the cottonwoods where they had shared so many important moments. The whole valley came to the funeral, just as they had for Aaron 8 years earlier. People spoke of her kindness, her strength, her love for her family and her community. But the words that appeared on her gravestone, chosen by her children, captured the essence of her story. Theresa Ann York, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. She came west expecting hardship and found happiness instead. She loved deeply and was deeply loved in return. And on Aaron's stone beside hers, they added new words. Aaron James York, devoted husband, father, and grandfather, he gave her everything. The ranch passed to Andrew and his children, then to his grandchildren, staying in the family for generations. The story of Theresa and Aaron became a legend in the valley, told and retold to each new generation. The mail-order bride and the cowboy who found love in the harsh beauty of the Utah Territory. Their great-great-grandchildren still worked the land that Aaron had built and Theresa had made into a home. They still gathered under those same cottonwoods where Theresa and Aaron had fallen in love. They still told the story of how a desperate girl from Boston and a lonely rancher took a chance on each other and built something that would last long after they were gone. It was a love story for the ages, proof that happiness can be found in the most unexpected places, that love can bloom even in harsh soil, that two people willing to commit to each other can build something that will outlast them both. Theresa had expected hardship when she came west. Aaron had given her happiness instead. And that happiness, that love, that legacy continued long after both of them had returned to the dust from which they came, living on in the family they created and the land they loved. It was a good life, well lived. It was a love story with a happy ending, the best kind there is.